This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and the miraculous happens and God reveals that he's right here, right now. I am your host, Trapper Jack. Angel stories, great angels to the rescue stories coming up in this episode. I know you're going to like it. Let's see. When I was on the radio, if there was a daily mantra that I lived by, it was don't miss the obvious. Just don't miss the obvious. What is everybody talking about? What are the hot topics out there? What is something maybe we've been talking about, but we can do a little different spin on? You know, comedians are really good at that. Seinfeld, what a master, right? Seinfeld, I love the way his mind worked. He would talk about rooting for baseball teams, but the players come and go, but the uniforms stay the same. So he said, basically, you're rooting for laundry. That's brilliant. I mean, that's just absolutely brilliant. Don't miss the obvious. Look for things in ways other people don't. So when you look at faith, when you look at the church, and what do we know? What is obvious? What is obvious? The church is bleeding people. The church, people are leaving in droves. Let's not miss the obvious here. They're leaving in droves. Millennials, half gone. Bye-bye. Let's see. For every new person coming into the church, 6 are leaving overall. Bye-bye. And our job, realizing this is a purification, which is always good. This is a purification of the church. Revelation, Jesus saying, lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth. I mean, it's like, isn't that nice guy Jesus saying that? Is that nice guy Jesus? That's nice guy Jesus saying, lukewarm, I got no time. Lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth. Well, he's spewing right now, big time. But that doesn't mean that we're at the exit saying to everybody on their way out, bye-bye, bye-bye. Don't forget your bag, bye-bye, bye. No, our job is to say, whoa, wait a minute. Especially here, what we do on Touched by Heaven and the Blind Faith Live podcast series. Our job here is to say, wait, do you know that miracles are happening? Let me give you some examples. Do you know that this is happening and that's happening? Do you know, just to give you pause, you want to think about this again before you fly away or think that God is boring or anything like that? Are you aware of that? And that's what we do here, right? So recently, I was talking to a local group called Young Catholic Professionals. And keep in mind, this was a talk specific to Catholics. If I was talking to Protestants, it would have been a little different. But this was a conversation with young anomalies, if you will, young Catholic professionals who, as far as I know, had no plans of leaving. But they're watching their friends leaving in droves. Purification of the church, right? So Beth and I went over there, and we were dodging a lot of traffic and congestion this particular day. But I grabbed my white cane.
Want to go on the record as saying that driving in construction does not bother me? You stick one of these out the driver's side window, and it's like Moses and the Red Sea, baby.
And I went about talking about, well, the elephant in the room, the droves of people leaving.
Horrible numbers. I mean, just horrible. And if they're walking out for the last time from Mass, and you were to say why, they would say Mass is boring, homilies are boring, everything's boring, God's boring. I'm more spiritual than religious, and off they go. But we tend to just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, well, that's society, that's the culture, and all that. All I know is on the radio, if I had 6 listeners leaving for every new one coming in, I would be what they call fired. In the church, we don't fire people. We just shrug and go, that's society, that's culture. And I want you to think about something. Because there was a time when the culture was worse and the church was growing by leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds. When? At the beginning. Culture, if you were found out to be going to somebody's house to have Mass, the Eucharist, you were going to end up in prison or dead. Try that for a culture. Would you go? I mean, today, would you go to Bob's house on Sunday because there was going to be a secret Eucharist? Mass and all that? Would you go? Would I go? Back then, they went. They went. The church was exploding with people. They couldn't kill them off fast enough. They just kept joining. Why? Why? Because the miraculous converts. The miraculous converts. Because back then, were there miracles? You bet. There are the apostles, and they're praying for people, and things are happening, and people are getting their healings. Not only that, the angels are really busy too. Heck, they're opening up jail cells and letting people out, right? Then you have apostles who they couldn't kill. They'd stone them. They think they were dead. They'd leave them for dead, and they'd get up and walk away. God would not allow them to die until they had fulfilled their purpose, and that was God's call. Well, I got news for you. Everything I just mentioned is still happening. I repeat, everything I mentioned is still happening. Back then, it was part of the church. It was part of the fiber. It was part of the fabric of the religion. Inside the church, there was talk about the miracles, the apostles, about the angels, what the angels were doing, about not dying. Everything that they talked about, they did, was all inclusive in the church. Now, you look ahead to now, what do you have? All of that is not, we're talking about 2,000 years ago miracles, and not talking about the miracles that are happening right here, right now in this world. Heaven and earth are colliding every day in this world. Heaven and earth are colliding every day. The miraculous did not stop 2,000 years ago, but we're not talking about it in the church. It's out there. So, if you strip away the church of the wow of God, he's boring. He's completely boring. Why would I want to stick around there if only 2,000 years ago was pretty exciting? Right now, I know, because when I was 19 years old, I walked.
And I would add to that the miraculous converts and keeps. That's the idea before they go out the exit door, and keeps. The miraculous converts and keeps. And everything I mentioned, the miracles, angels, people not dying when it looked like they should be, have all happened already on these episodes already, right? And more to come today. Angel stories coming up. So, and it's about this time. Keep in mind, I'm talking to a Catholic group, so I go, okay, are you aware? Are your friends aware of the Eucharistic miracles? And there are a couple I like to go into. I mean, because over the centuries, the stories of bleeding hosts, consecrated hosts, they're everywhere. If you know where to look. But once again, don't miss the obvious. It's not something that you necessarily are going to hear at Mass. It's not generally where they go. I can't ever remember hearing a homily that involved Eucharistic miracles. I don't know why. If I was there, don't miss the obvious. I would, but that's me. So, and I like to refer to, in particular, because I love how they're tied together, the 8th century story of the priest celebrating Mass, and right there before him, as he was doubting in his mind, the host, the bread, turned into something fleshy, and the wine began coagulating. Looks like we have the body and blood of somebody here. And he stopped the Mass, and then they saved that. Like, just, is this what we think it is, kind of thing. And they saved it for centuries, as it turned out. So then when you get to the science of the 70s, and they can look at it, and they can see that when they send off to a lab and it comes back, oh, okay, what do you have there? You have human DNA. You have a piece of somebody's heart. When that comes back scientifically proven, and this has happened more than once with independent labs who don't know what they're looking at other than they're supposed to see, what is this? You have there a piece of somebody's heart. The 8th century story. And then when you tie it to something that happened in Argentina in 1996, when once again a host, which had fallen to the floor, was put into water so it would dissolve and they could discard the water then. And then, lo and behold, it didn't dissolve. It got bloody. And in fact, it got bigger. And they kept it in a tabernacle for 3 years. And then they said, well, we should take a little piece of this and send it off to a lab and see what happened to this thing. I'll run a little clip of that. This is from a YouTube video of the science behind this.
One of these scientists was Dr. Frederick Zugaba, the well-known cardiologist and forensic pathologist. Zugaba determined that the analyzed substance was real flesh and blood containing human DNA. As he looked down at his microscope, he said, "I can tell you exactly what this is. This flesh is part of the muscle of the heart found in the wall of the left ventricle. It's the muscle that gives the heart its beat and the body its life." Then Dr. Ricardo Castañón arranged to have the lab reports from the Buenos Aires miracle compared to the lab reports on a relic from a similar miracle that took place in Lanciano, Italy over 1,200 years ago, again without revealing the origin of the test samples. The experts making the comparison concluded that the two lab reports must have originated from test samples obtained from the same person.
And usually when I share these stories, people come up to me and they say, how come we don't know this? How come, I said, I don't know. I'm a believer in don't miss the obvious, but that's me. So, and I will tell the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Juan Diego, 1531, meeting this woman, Mary. who puts the roses in his cloak and takes it to the bishop and unfurl the cloak, and the roses seemingly have left an imprint, a selfie, if you will, of Mary standing in front of the sun, the moon beneath her feet, and the symbolism on that tilma, his cloak, converted 9-10 million Aztec pagans. I mean, that's just... because it said she was from heaven, it said she was pregnant, all the symbolism was there, and it converted just millions and millions and millions. And now the science, as they can look at it now, they can see that the stars that she's standing in front of are exactly where the constellations were on that day in December of 1531. And they can see that the temperature of that substance, they don't know what the substance is that made this image, still they don't know. And the temperature of this image of Mary is 98.6. And how many? There's so many things on there. And then the eyes. The eyes. Here's another YouTube documentary. And if you go to YouTube, there's a bazillion of these things on YouTube that you can look at, of documentaries done on just the eyes of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
The image of the bearded man with a full head of hair corresponds to pictures of Juan Diego, the Indian who originally saw Our Lady. In other words, the image of Juan Diego is microscopically captured in the Virgin's eye. Of course, no human painter could have ever conceived the need to put microscopic images of Juan Diego in the eyes of the Virgin, so that they would later be discovered by the advances in modern science. And it is simply impossible for any human painter to have pulled it off, because the images are simply too small to paint. And the presence of these images in the eyes is all the more amazing because the images correspond exactly to what happens in a human eye when it sees something. Jody Brant Smith, who studied the image of Guadalupe, along with Dr. Callahan, is a non-Catholic. In particular, what is called the Purkinje-Sanson principle. In its simplest form, the Purkinje-Sanson law states that whenever we see any object, the object is reflected in each eye, not once, but in 3 different places. This threefold reflection is caused by the curvature of the eye's cornea. 2 of the reflections are always right side up, and 1 is always upside down." End quote. The reflections of Juan Diego in the Virgin's eye correspond precisely to the Purkinje-Sanson law.
All of this is designed to get our attention. The miraculous converts and keeps. The miraculous gets our attention. And it's just, what? Which draws us into looking into it deeper. Conversation, if you will, looking into it deeper. God trying to draw us into conversation. He's got to get our attention first sometimes, then he draws us into conversation for a relationship. That's the way I came back. This isn't the only way. Some people just get it right off the bat, but this is the way I came back. I was out there a million miles, but it was the miraculous that woke me up and drew me closer. So, I'm going to give you a homework assignment here, a little homework assignment. As many of you know, there was the Blind Faith Live podcast series with Dr. Isam Nami. He's a living saint. He prays, things happen. Miracle stories, got hundreds of them there at blindfaithlive.com. And I'm going to have you go, and I'm going to tell you about 3 episodes in particular, right there on the main page of blindfaithlive.com. If you scroll down, you'll see an episode called One More Time. One More Time. Listen to that. Then I want you to listen to something else, 2 others. Episodes 195 and 196 get specific about Our Lady of Guadalupe and what it means. There she is, standing in front of the sun and the moon beneath her feet. Well, she is the Lady of Revelation. Revelation chapter 12 that Dr. Nami references more than anything else is Our Lady of Guadalupe. Same image, pregnant.
That's the child forming. And it's going to culminate very soon into an event that is going to give birth to that child. It will force that child to manifest itself. A group of Christians that are truthful, they are pure, they are going to be forced to identify themselves. That's the birth of the child.
So this is like the Christ-like people.
Exactly.
Being born.
Exactly.
Taken to heaven.
Exactly.
Christ coming for his church.
Not only this, it's a final act. The woman, that's the act of the woman. You see that Jesus already reversed the act of Adam, and Mary is reversing the act of Eve.
And Dr. Nami is now saying that in his recent encounters with Christ, The message is not just I'm coming soon, I'm coming very soon. I am coming very soon. So one more time at blindfaithlive.com, right there on the homepage, and then go to episodes 195 and 196 for this particular message of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Why? Because our God is not boring. And before people hit the exits, bye-bye, bye-bye. No. We need to do some inspiring. You and me, we need to do some inspiring and share some stories. The stories you hear right here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Tell me your story at touchedbyheaven.net. That's how you can contact me, touchedbyheaven.net. That's exactly what Pamela Svec did. Pamela Svec from Florida, and angel stories. Angels, are they real? Are they ever? And they come to the rescue here on Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Well, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. Are you in Florida? Is that where you are?
I am. Yep,
okay.
I'm in Florida.
Well, let's and take me back. When was this?
So it would have been 2001, like in December. Yes, it was our honeymoon, actually.
A good place to honeymoon. Okay, and what happened?
Yeah. Well, we got up really early. We had been there the year before, but I don't think we went to Hana. And I wanted to, and I had been there before and wanted to take them. And I said, we got to go really early. That way we can just see everything. There's no cars on the road. So I don't remember what time we left, but we left very early in the morning on that road. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like, I haven't been there for years now, but it's like a little bumpy road. It's like, actually, they say it's dangerous, and there's no, in between, there's no gas stations. You have to make sure you fill up, and you don't see a lot of people until you get to the Hana town. And then a lot of cool, secluded little beaches that if you talk to the locals, you can find these little cool places that you can hike out to and stuff that are really almost deserted. It's really neat.
Okay. So you were on that road.
So we were on that road, and I think it was like our first stop. I can't remember. And I said, we got to go stop. There's a waterfall over there. So we jump out of the car, shut the door. We're taking photos. We're looking down. And as I'm walking back to the car, I got that sinking feeling. Oh, crud. I locked the keys in the car and it's running. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're like in the middle of nowhere. And I started to get that worried feeling. And then he wasn't my husband at the time. He's very Italian. He's like freaking out, like, oh, Pamela, what are we going to do? This is crazy. And he's banging on the door. We're never going to get it open. And he's trying to open the door. And then I just said, don't worry. Just stop worrying. Help's coming. And he said, what are you talking about? You're so crazy with that weird. I go, no, just please. Help is coming. I feel it's just going to come. Don't worry. We're not going to worry about this. It's coming. It's going to be fine. Almost to that moment, this pickup, and we didn't see any car on the road before that. Suddenly we see this pickup truck, this blue truck coming around the bend. And we're just sort of like, we couldn't believe a car was coming. And he pulls right off to where we were without us having to wave him down or anything. And he gets out. And it was like this blue pickup, all kind of beat up with stuff rattling around the back. He gets out, his hair's like all disheveled, I remember. And I think he just had jeans on. I don't remember the shirt. It could have been white, but I don't really remember the color. And he gets out and he's like, you need some help? And we're like, kind of like, yeah. We locked our keys in the car and the cars are running. He goes, oh yeah, hold on a minute. And he goes in the back of his truck for a second and comes back with the big long metal thing, and took him about 10 seconds. He opens up the car, and we're sort of just in awe of this whole thing, because I'm thinking it just happened so fast. And then he said, okay, you're all set. And we said, oh, thank you so much. He gets, and then this is the part that blew us away the most. He gets back in his truck, he turns it around and drove off in the direction it came from.
Wow. Like you were the mission. Like you were the mission he was on.
He just came over, and we didn't have to wave him down. He drives right over to us. We didn't like jump up and down like, hey, we need help or anything. He just comes around the bend, drives off into the little area where we were, and gets out, and that was it.
And I'm trying to remember, what are those things called? Jimmies? What do they call those things that he used?
That was even weird when I think that he had one of those, Yeah, it was like a little, a metal thing or something. He stuck in between the window and the door.
Down and slide it down. I'm forgetting what those are. Everyone's yelling this at me.
I don't know either.
I'm just brain cramping right now, but I know exactly what it was. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool for thieves, or
Yeah,
if you work in a
true.
shop where you're trying to get a locksmith. A locksmith would have that kind of
Right.
doodad that would do that.
I mean, it's just too weird. The guy just happens to show up at that time, right? Literally moments after I realized, I mean, it wasn't like we were waiting for 2 hours and somebody finally drove up. It was so quick. And then the fact that he just jumps out like he knew we needed help, had the thing in the back of his truck of all things too, pulls it out, gets it 10 seconds later, my car is open and he's driving off in the direction he came from. I mean, I just don't have any other explanation.
And what is your connection to God? Are you in prayer daily?
I was brought up Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was strict Catholic and my mom was Lutheran. My dad went to all Catholic schools and brought up by the nuns and all that. And then he went to a Catholic college in Chicago, DePaul University, and was had to take theology courses of different religions. And he said he went through literally hell because all the things he thought he believed, just, from his childhood, now he was questioning. And they had to take theology courses, part of the curriculum. He wasn't majoring in it, but you had to because it was a Catholic college, and they made you take religious, different religion classes he had to learn about. And he had never done that. And so he said some of it made more sense to him than what he was brought up believing. So he kept going to the priests and talking, and they would only say to him, "You just must have faith, son. You just have to have faith. That's all I can tell you." And it wasn't enough for my dad. So he sort of swore off religion and said, "I don't know what I believe anymore. I'm an agnostic. I don't want my children to go through what I went through. I'm never putting them in a religious school. I don't even want them going to church." He was really strict with my mom. But my mom did take us to Lutheran, to the church, and we did get our, what is that called, communion or whatever. But I kind of was like with my dad. Like I thought my dad knew everything. As a little girl, you think your dad's so smart and your dad knows it all. So my dad would talk a lot. So he believed in something, but he didn't know what. And that's kind of how I grew up. I just was like, yeah, there's something, but I don't know what it is.
Says a lot for DePaul. Says a lot for a Catholic university that it has him becoming an agnostic. That really says that high praise for DePaul,
I know.
That's
I don't know if they still do that.
Well, that is the thing. When you go to college, sometimes you're surprised what you get, even in theology. That's true in high school, too. I've heard some horror stories out of high school where it's like, they taught what? In theology, they taught what?
I know.
It's just sometimes they're more confused than anybody.
That's true.
So that's interesting.
That's
and there's absolutely nothing wrong with learning about all the different faiths and whatnot, but to come out so confused and just, I don't even want you even going near the God stuff is pretty sad.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
But he would invite everybody in that would knock at our door, those religious people like Jehovah's Witness or whatever that would knock at the door. And I remember with my sister and I would listen up at the stairs while he talked to them. He loved talking to those people, whether it was a priest or whoever that would come by, because we had a lot of people come by back in the, I guess 70s. And he would invite them in for coffee, and they'd have these long debates and discussions, and then they'd go to a coffee shop and continue it there. And I remember thinking, geez, Dad, it was like he would just cite, he knew the Bible backwards and forwards. He would quote Bible verses to the people right there. Like, no, what about this quote that's in the Bible? Can explain that one to me. And they'd have these long debates. And
interesting. So he loved the topic. He loved the topic.
He did. Yeah.
And he was seeking then, but a nice guy, but he's a good guy.
He was. Yeah, he's a good guy. My dad's a really good guy.
Interesting. So where are you now in all this stuff?
Well, I'm very spiritual. I go sometimes. It's funny. I go to Cape Christian. It's a church out here when I'm not working, and I go to this little spiritual center that's like a non-denominational, more like a New Thought, kind of like the Living Through Vision class I took in Hawaii, where totally believe in God, but it's not like any religion, and it's more like they talk about a lot of other people's writings, not just Bible. And you kind of just sort of see it in a different way. So I'm kind of both, and I exposed my two girls to both. Mm-hmm. And my husband grew up Catholic because he's from Italy. His family baptized the girls in the Catholic Church in Italy, but they never went to those classes and never did any of that. So sometimes I feel bad I didn't do that for them, but they'll figure it out on their own one day.
That's the theory, anyway. That's the theory.
Yeah, that's the theory, right?
How did you find us? How did you find Touched by Heaven?
Oh, I heard you on a blog. I heard you on the paranormal podcast
with Jim Harold. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Yes. I just the other day, because I like to listen to him when I'm in the car driving around instead of the radio.
I was just on the phone with him a few minutes ago, thanking him again for having me on his show, and he's brought us a lot of listeners. What I told him was, and I loved, he has done more. He has done, it's really kind of funny. I told him, I said, you and your wife have had more of the Christian spirit with me than most Christians around me. They have been so good to me in terms of helping me with podcasts and bringing us new listeners, in terms of just technically and just stories. And his wife, Dar, she was on that episode. You probably heard it then, Our Heavenly Mom. Did you listen to her story? Wonderful experience of Blessed Mother appearing to her.
Yes, I did hear that one. That was really good. Wow,
Beautiful.
that was...
It's beautiful.
Yes. And so one time I was doing this like little meditative prayer, and somehow or another when I was doing it, I was thinking, well, this was when I was really big into the, female. So I was thinking of Mary, and I was sort of praying to her. And then I felt like, it's just so weird, but in the middle of it, I had this love feeling kind of come over me, and to the point of tears. And it was like, I felt like I could feel Jesus standing there saying, don't forget about me. I'm here too. And it was like this whole, and it wasn't like it didn't feel like he was mad at me that I was talking to Mary or something. It was like he wanted just to remind me, hey, I'm here too. Don't forget about me. I'm important too, kind of a thing. Well, and it was like really overwhelming.
Yeah. Mary always leads us to Jesus. Always. It's never about Mary ultimately. It's always Mary leading us to Jesus. And that's what she does. I mean, that's... But there's no question. I think you probably were feeling her, and she was leading you to him. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's
nice. So I had two other little quick things I can tell you that happened. That was the latest thing. Then before that, I don't know what years these were though, because they were way earlier. One had to be in the 90s because I was still living in Iowa. I went to school in University of Iowa, and I graduated in 87. So it was probably 1988. And I was dating a guy at the time who did become my husband for about a year and a half. We were dating 10 years. That's a long story. But at the time, he was living in Chicago, and I was in Iowa. I had just gotten my first job, and they moved me back to Iowa for my job. So we were separated, and I felt like something was going on with my boyfriend, and I had my guy friend call a woman's house where I thought he might be that night. And sure enough, he was there. So I was in this awful, distraught moment where I felt like my life was over, and I'm not gonna kill myself, but you feel that low where you're like, oh my God, my life's over. And I was in my apartment, and I didn't really drink that much back then. I would go out with my friends and drink, but I never would sit in the house and drink by myself or anything like that. But I was in such a bad state. I remember like a glass of wine or two or something to try to feel better. And I couldn't even bring myself to go into my bedroom and lay in my bed. I was just in this awful, crying, terrible place. So I just grabbed a pillow and collapsed practically onto my floor of this. I remember this gold shag carpeting, and I must have fallen asleep for a little bit. And I woke up suddenly. And when I woke up, and I'll never ever forget this either, I felt someone holding me. It literally felt like a person holding me, almost like as if, your boyfriend or your girlfriend would hold you. But I knew nobody was there logically. It didn't scare me, and it felt very comforting. And all I was thinking is what in the world's going on here? And I just sat there, and I felt like I didn't want to move. I almost didn't want to breathe. I felt like if I moved or breathed, it would go away. And it felt so good. I didn't want it to go. And then I started to logically think what is it? And then one part of my brain goes, oh, it must be my boyfriend. He feels so guilty. He left his body somehow, and he's hugging me. And I thought, nope, that's not it. And then I said, no, this is an angel. God sent me an angel to comfort me at this time. And then it was dark in the room, and I thought, I just want to see if I can see anything. So as soon as I tried to move, it left. But I will never forget that. And I felt fine after that too. I was able to go to sleep and everything, and I was fine.
That's sweet. That's just really sweet.
Yeah, that was really sweet. And then another one was when I was driving in Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, and I think I was getting on the on-ramp, and there must have been a car coming the wrong way down the on-ramp. And I was, I don't remember how fast it was going. It might have been raining slightly. And it was one of those happened so fast. I was driving. I see a light where there shouldn't be one. I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm dead. That was kind of the thought that came over me, to the point where I didn't even have time to move or do anything. And I felt the car steering wheel. It was as if somebody took it and just jerked my wheel far to the right for me. and I missed the car. I felt the air go in between us.
But you felt someone take the wheel.
I felt, yes, I didn't turn it. I was in like literally, it happened so fast. And it was as if you were in driver's ed and the teacher went like, no, I said turn right or something. And they grabbed the wheel and jerked it. It was that much of a jerk.
What did you do? What did you do? How did you file that one away?
Well, I said, thank you. All I kept saying was thank you after that. I just knew that it had to be that. I'm like, oh my God, thank you, God, thank you.
When you were growing up, did your family talk about guardian angels or anything like that?
No, never.
Were you,
never, no
were
angel
you,
talk.
You were never, were you aware of the concept of like guardian angels and angels that protect you?
Not really until later in life. I think I could have read a book about it once at some point, probably when I was younger, like my 20s maybe. But my parents never talked about stuff like that. My dad would never have. And my mom just was like your typical go to church on Sunday. We didn't really talk about that. Mm-hmm. I didn't even really pay attention at church. I was just bored, totally
just bored and
bored and antagonizing the poor pastor from my dad when we had the confirmation classes. He would tell me what to ask in front of the whole class, and of course I did it.
Oh, just to test?
To see what he'd say, and then I have to go report back to my dad and tell him what he said.
Do you remember any of those questions? Probably not.
No, I don't. I don't. I just remember, and that was,
your poor dad. Your poor dad. I mean, he was really reeling, and he was, and to give him credit, he was like trying to find it. He was trying to find it. He really was. He was questioning everything and trying to find it and all of that,
Yeah.
But it just sounds like you've had a pretty strong guardian angel through your life.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm always safe, like I don't really worry too much now. I ask for that, and I ask for my children always. And now I'm very, much, I'll tell my children, just ask when you're feeling scared. Oh, I'm worried about the test. Just ask for help on the test. God has all the answers. It's just, you're part of that.
Thanks, Pamela, for inspiring us to let us know again that angels are for real. And Dad, episodes 195 and 196, and then the one episode there on the homepage of blindfaithlive.com, one more time. Let's see what you do with that, and then contact me. I'd like to hear. I'd like to connect with you. All right, thank you very much for joining us here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. If you do have a story, please share at touchedbyheaven.net. Thanks for your financial support through Patreon. Just click to be a patron at touchedbyheaven.net. Thanks for subscribing to the show. See you next time. I'm Trapper Jack.